Unbeknownst to humans, giants have been stealing their children during the night to eat them. However, after a little girl sees a giant in the night, things change. It is midnight in the city of London, and a young girl named Sophie is making sure that all the doors and windows of her orphanage are tightly closed, because this is the time known as the witching hour, when people disappear. While Sophie takes every precaution, the shadow of something or someone huge lurks through the city. While the rest of the children in the orphanage sleep, Sophie stays awake in her bed reading. The orphanage's cat notices something and goes out to the balcony. Sophie follows the cat outside and sees a giant man in the street. The giant realizes that Sophie has seen him. Scared to death, Sophie hides in her blanket, but the giant reaches into the orphanage and grabs her along with her blanket. Carrying Sophie, the giant begins to leave the city. He avoids being seen by other people through a series of clever tricks. After leaving the city, the giant runs through the countryside toward the cliffs, taking massive leaps with his long legs. Finally, he takes a great leap and jumps into some clouds. They arrive in a strange land where the giant takes Sophie to his home. The giant hangs Sophie in her blanket and starts chopping some vegetables for a stew. Sophie tries to escape when the giant isn't looking, but she makes a noise and the giant hears her. The giant speaks to Sophie and tells her she cannot escape unless she has wings. Sophie asks him where they are, and he replies that they are in giant country. More giants are heard outside, and Sophie begs this one not to eat her. The giant laughs at her and tells her he is not a monstrous cannibal. He would never eat her. Sophie argues that he is a monster because he stole her. The giant replies that he feels very bad for doing that, especially for her mother and father. Sophie says she is an orphan, so she doesn't have parents. She asks the giant if the other giants are friendly like him, and he replies that they are not. They would eat her without a second thought. He also adds that compared to them, the other giants are huge. He is a runt in giant country. Sophie asks him why he brought her here, and he replies that he had to. If he didn't, she would tell everyone that she saw a giant, and he would be captured by humans and put in a zoo. Sophie promises him that she won't tell anyone and asks him to take her back home, but he doesn't believe her. He says that she will now live the rest of her life here with him. Sophie says that if he doesn't let her go, she will run away, and he warns her that if she ever leaves this house without him, the other giants will eat her. The giant takes out a jar with a blue light moving inside, and Sophie asks about it. The giant says it is a dream, and Sophie says that dreams aren't real things. The giant reads Sophie's book, and she falls asleep. While she sleeps, the giant goes to a deeper part of his home where there are piles of jars with lights moving inside them. He grabs a jar with a red light and begins to work on it. Sophie wakes up and finds that the giant is sleeping. She takes the opportunity to escape through a window. However, as she flees, a much larger giant appears in front of her and grabs her. Sophie screams for help, but the friendly giant simply closes the door of his cave home because he can't do anything. The enormous giant throws Sophie up in the air and swallows her. Sophie wakes up and realizes that it was all a dream the friendly giant gave her specifically to prove to her that dreams are indeed real things. The next morning, the giant is drinking a fizzy beverage called frobscoddle, and Sophie notices that the bubbles in the drink float downwards instead of upwards, like they do in normal drinks. She points this out, and the giant says that bubbles floating upwards cause nasty burps. Sophie argues that bubbles floating downwards probably come out in a much worse way, but the giant doesn't seem to care about that. He lets out a massive fart that lifts him off the ground like a rocket, and he enjoys it immensely. At that moment, one of the enormous man-eating giants arrives, and the friendly giant hides Sophie to protect her. During the tricky situation, Sophie hides inside a vegetable and very narrowly avoids being eaten after the friendly giant convinces the other giant that he hates vegetables and only eats human beings. Afterward, the friendly giant takes Sophie deep into his cave home and helps her clean up. He gives her a pile of clothes to choose a new outfit from. Sophie puts on a red jacket she finds, and the giant gives her a strange, almost sad look when he sees her. Sophie asks him what's wrong, and he doesn't answer. He places Sophie in a comfortable room inside a tree and says he is going out to do his job, which is catching dreams. Sophie says she wants to go with him, but he flatly refuses. Sophie looks at some of the dreams in the jars and watches them take shape. She stubbornly insists on going with the friendly giant, and he finally agrees. They leave the cave home and find all the ferocious giants sleeping. They try to sneak past them, but they wake up and grab the friendly giant by the leg. Sophie runs and hides in an old wrecked car while all the ferocious giants bully the friendly giant. They use him like a soccer ball and throw him around. Sophie can't believe he doesn't fight back. Suddenly, it starts to rain, and all the ferocious giants run to hide because they hate water. The friendly giant puts Sophie in his bag and runs away. Unbeknownst to him, he accidentally leaves Sophie's blanket behind, and the other giants smell it and realize he has a human with him. Sophie and the giant arrive at a place the giant calls Dream Country. Sophie sees that the stars above are shining brightly. The giant says that on a clear enough night, his massive ears can hear music coming from the stars. He says he also hears insects talking in the ground, ladybugs walking on leaves, plants and leaves talking to each other, and all the secret whispers of the world. Sophie notices the reflection of the giant tree in the water and sees that it is filled with dreams. The giant says that at one point someone called him the Big Friendly Giant, BFG. He jumps into the water and enters a different dimension. He asks Sophie to follow him, and she does. They both stand in front of the tree where all dreams begin. The Big Friendly Giant notices a golden dream and says it is a very rare kind. He tries to catch it, but it continuously slips away. The dream slows down near Sophie, and he says the dream recognizes her. He adds that when he listens to it, he can hear her voice. He puts the dream in a jar, labeling it as Sophie's dream. Sophie helps the giant catch dreams until she stumbles upon a red one, which is a nightmare. The giant grabs the red dream and explains that the red dream is one of regret. It shows people the horrible things they have done and tells them there is no forgiveness. The giant pulls Sophie out of the other dimension and they set off. During the walk, Sophie says that from now on she will call the Big Friendly Giant BFG. Sophie and BFG arrive in London, where BFG uses his giant trumpet to blow happy dreams to people while they sleep. He narrates the happy dreams for Sophie, and she loves them. As they walk back home, they see all the other giants going out to hunt human children to eat them. Sophie says they have to find a way to put an end to this. During this conversation, they also deduce that Sophie dropped her blanket in Giant Country, and suddenly, BFG's face turns stern. Then, Sophie wakes up in front of the orphanage. BFG says that because they dropped her blanket in Giant Country, the other giants now know of her existence, so she is no longer safe with him. Sophie insists that they can stop the other giants together, but BFG tells her a story of how he once brought another child to Giant Country. The child saw BFG just as Sophie did, so BFG had to take him. The red jacket Sophie found belonged to that child. After some time, the other giants found out about the boy, and BFG didn't bring him back home in time to save him from their wrath. BFG concludes that he will not repeat that mistake with Sophie and leaves, despite her protests. Sophie sits on the balcony of the orphanage and speaks to BFG, knowing his giant ears can still hear her. She says she can feel him nearby, and to force him to reveal himself, she jumps off the balcony. BFG catches her. The two return to Giant Country and start brainstorming a plan to stop the other giants. At that moment, the other ferocious giants arrive and start searching for Sophie all over the house, destroying BFG's work in the process. Sophie barely avoids being seen by the giants, and finally, BFG decides he's had enough. He chases the ferocious giants out of his home with a flaming stick. Meanwhile, Sophie hides in the room BFG made for the last child he brought to Giant Country. She spots a picture of the queen and comes up with a plan. They create a custom dream for the queen, showing giants eating children and the army stopping them. The dream also includes Sophie and BFG. When she wakes up from that dream, Sophie and BFG will meet her, and she will be willing to listen to them. They arrive at the palace and blow the dream to the queen while she sleeps. The queen wakes up and tells her assistant about the dream, who says it is curious because, in fact, children have been mysteriously disappearing all over the country. As the queen's assistant goes to close the curtains, she finds Sophie standing there, and the queen recognizes her from the dream. Sophie tells the queen everything, and the queen believes her because she just saw it all in her dream. Sophie then introduces BFG to the queen, who awkwardly says hello. Then, the queen informs the generals about the giant threat while organizing a lunch for BFG. Due to his giant manners, the lunch is an awkward and hilarious affair. BFG even has the queen and all her servants and generals try the frobscoddle, which gives them incredible gas. Afterward, BFG guides the royal army to Giant Country. He creates a dream of regret to give to the other ferocious giants, so they wake up filled with remorse and become easy targets for the army. Sophie and BFG sit down to talk about Sophie's golden dream. Sophie asks what the dream is about, and BFG replies that it is Sophie's dream of having a normal life. He says she will have it, but not here in Giant Country. She must return to her world. Sophie asks if BFG will still hear her whenever she calls him, and in response, he just points to his massive ears. The time comes to blow the dream to the giants, and BFG realizes he has forgotten his trumpet in London. When he isn't looking, Sophie grabs the dream jar and takes it right to the center of the sleeping giants. She is about to open it when a giant wakes up. Sophie manages to break the jar and fill the remaining giants with dreams of regret, but the first one remains lucid and normal. He is about to attack Sophie when BFG steps in and defends her. The giant prepares to strike BFG when the royal army arrives and stops him. The royal army captures and subdues all the ferocious giants and proceeds to take them away, finally freeing Giant Country from their terror. The ferocious giants are taken to a remote island from which there is no escape. The only thing they are given to eat for the rest of their days is vegetables, and they are not happy about it at all. Later, Sophie wakes up in the Queen's palace and is greeted by her assistant. Meanwhile, BFG now has Giant Country all to himself. He is growing a garden full of delicious vegetables and working on writing a book about all their adventures. Back at the palace, Sophie says, "Good morning, BFG," into the air, knowing full well that BFG can hear her wherever he is. And sure enough, he hears her. The end. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like our channel and subscribe if you enjoy content like this. Also, let us know which movie you'd love for us to recap for you.